Welcome back to my fourth tutorial video for Leo Whitefang. This one covers Leo's grounded dust normals when not in back turn. We'll also be starting to talk about BRC mix-ups, both in this video and the next. So let's dive right in. 5D. As with basically all 5Ds in Guilty Gear, 5D is a standing overhead. It can be held to charge it, and if it hits the opponent when fully charged, you can press up to follow them into the air and do the classic airborne dust combo. Dust combos typically do a lot of damage without requiring meter, so it makes charged 5D also a great punish tool. The route I recommend is this one, since it's mostly optimal and it works on basically everyone but Kai. For Kai, you can just replace the first jump H with jump K instead. The rest is the same, which I find makes this easy to remember and use, as opposed to doing the most optimal route possible. However, since most people are aware of this, if the opponent has a burst, you can be almost certain they're going to use it here. If you're willing to go for a read and think they'll burst before you hit them, after pressing up, you can return to block and wait. If they don't burst, you can still pick up the combo at the bottom of the screen with jump S. Some opponents will burst at this point, so if you want to bait from a jump S, you can immediately jump cancel the first hit and block. If they aren't too close to the bottom of the screen, you can jump after blocking the burst and then pick up the combo again. If 5D is blocked, an uncharged 5D is more minus than a charged one. A charged 5D is only minus 10, which makes it particularly good when spaced at max range, whereas an uncharged 5D is minus 15. While this might sound bad, uncharged 5D is only 20 frames of startup, and especially on console, this is basically not reactable. As a result, you usually use uncharged 5D when it will kill, or when you plan to RC into a combo anyways. As far as charged 5D, despite being 28 frames and reactable, it's also useful when you have meter to RC and the opponent may not suspect it as a mix-up. The reason here is that you don't even need to react to if they block it or not. You can input RC towards the end of the 5D animation. If they get hit, the special charged dust animation starts to play and you can press up to continue the dust combo. The RC will never come out. If they blocked it, there's no special animation, your RC will come out normally, which you can react to and then handle however you want. Another, yet higher risk, way to use charge 5D is as a frame trap. If you have 50 meter and get the opponent to block a special, such as 236S or 214S, you can RC into a charge 5D as a frame trap. This mix-up works because a smart opponent knows how slow charge 5D is. They often want to press a button here to interrupt the 5D rather than block it, because it will net them a counter hit. Unfortunately for them, if the charge 5D is done at the earliest time from literally any of Leo's specials, the gap, in combination with the RC slowdown, is enough that neither 3-frame normals or throws will win. If you're worried about the spacing, you can pretty much safely RC drift towards them without fear of being thrown, so long as you're not in the corner. This is because the pushback works differently in the corner than it does mid-screen, and the pushback is what's preventing you from getting thrown mid-screen. If you're in the corner, you'll need to be more conscious of the spacing, as if you're too close, you can be thrown if the opponent buffers it perfectly. Another way to use 5D is from blue Roman cancel. It really depends how quickly after the BRC you do 5D, but if you do an uncharged 5D after a BRC at the earliest time, you can combo into 2K if it hits. On block, you're actually +1, though if you did the 5D later in the BRC, you might end up even or slightly minus instead. This mix-up is really strong, but we'll get back to why later. As a final note, 5D can be cancelled into from 5K, 2K, and close slash normally, so keep that in mind when structuring your pressure when not in back turn. To recap, 5D is a standing overhead that is good for mix-up but punishable on block. Uncharged is basically not reactable, while charged version can be reacted to. Charged 5D is a great meterless punish tool. There's a burst mind game around dust combos, so be prepared to handle it appropriately. With 50 meter, uncharged 5D is a scary mix-up tool, both via red RC and blue RC. You can frame trap into charged 5D from specials with 50 meter. And lastly, you can cancel into 5D from 5K, 2K, and close slash. 2D. 2D is a low-hitting dropkick that, for the range, is relatively safe. It's only 12 frames of startup, which makes it competitive with far slash as one of your best mid-range pokes. It leads to hard knockdown on hit, which lets you get into Brynhildr stance because you can whiff a 236H after it hits, in time to still meaty the opponent. Because it hits low and has good range, it's a really good option to catch people trying to walk backwards to adjust spacing. It's also only -5 on block. As you might imagine, this lets you bully characters whose fastest normal is 6 frames, since, at range, they need to take a risk to get their turn back. If they're wrong and get hit by H flash kick, it leads to back turn. Since this is basically a win condition for Leo, this is awful for the opponent, and a really strong option if you have the meter to cover it if they happen to block it. If you scare them into respecting 2D too much, you can even do strike throw mix-up from it. On counter hit, it leads to the highest level counter hit, similar to Leo's heavy slash normals. But because of the opponent being airborne in the positioning, it can be a bit tricky to take advantage of. It's also important to note that 2D is considered airborne from frame 5. This, combined with how strong of a counter hit it is, makes it a very powerful tool for calling out throws. Offensively, when you think the opponent will either try to read with a throw or simply try to tech it, you can dash into throw range and press 2D to counter hit them for it. This is particularly useful when you have 50 meter, since you can react to the hit stop of them blocking the attack to RC and continue pressure. Against characters whose fastest normal is 6 frames or otherwise don't get a very good punish, it may be worth doing it on a hard read even without meter, but avoid doing this recklessly. From close range, it can be universally punished by a throw, so keep that in mind. Defensively, the risk-reward considerations are similar. If you have a lot of life, a burst, meter to RC, etc., it might be a reasonable option. It is very common for someone to dash at you before throwing, so if they're at a range where you can react to the dash and may want to throw, this is a defensive option you can consider once in a while, since it will also catch attempted backdash shimmies. There are, of course, also less risky ways to defend against this, such as backdash BRC, so weigh your options appropriately. One big caveat about 2D is that despite hitting low, it itself is actually low profilable, because the hitbox matches the animation and hits fairly high off the ground. Because of this, you need to be careful about using it in neutral against characters that have good low profile tools. Sometimes you may want to do 2K or 5H instead to change up your options and keep the opponent guessing. Next, we previously talked about BRC mix-ups using 5D. In order for it to be a real mix-up, you want there to be a low option. Obviously 2K is an option, but so is 2D, and when blocked from a BRC, the frame data changes significantly. When blocked from a BRC, 2D can be more than plus 15. 2K is also very plus and leads to backturn even on block, so this gives you 2 great low options to offset 5D for mix-ups. A note about this is that the plus frames on the normal change the later in the BRC slowdown you do them. It's sort of unintuitive, but just keep in mind that when the BRC slowdown effect is over, you stop getting the additional plus frames, and this can happen midway through the move. That being said, if the 2D hits from the BRC, you can combo off of it even if it's not a counter hit. Lastly, 2D can be cancelled into from 5K, 2K, and close slash. To recap, 2D is a low-hitting, mid-range poke. For its range, it's not very minus and has startup comparable to far slash. It's considered airborne very early in the animation, so it can be used to call out throws. It has enough active frames to catch most backdashes. You can abuse its slightly negative properties versus characters with slower normals. It leads to hard knockdown on hit, which lets you get into Brynhildr with 236H. It can be low profiled pretty easily, it's good for BRC mix-ups, and lastly, you can cancel into 2D from 5K, 2K, and close slash. That's it for this video. The intention was to cover jump normals as well, but this video ended up being longer than expected, so we'll be covering jump normals and more BRC stuff next time. And sorry this one took a little longer than usual, I was a bit preoccupied. The next one should be much faster. Anyhow, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you back here next time. If you like this video, and especially if you're enjoying the series, remember to like and subscribe, then check out the socials. Later guys!